Well, what's the crack? And welcome back to the Proud Crack podcast with me, your host, Damien and Colum, proud gay Irishman, pronouns he, him, hosting this right here in Ireland. Little map up there and a map over there with my guest. So, guest, remind us who you are and what's the crack?
Damien, my name is Colum. My pronouns are he, him. I'm from Cork. I'm living in Scotland. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here today with you.
Fabulous. That's excellent to hear. So those of you that were wondering when I'm talking about maps and things, if you're watching me, you get it because there's 2 maps of Ireland on your screen. But if you're listening, go check out us online, whether it be through Spotify or YouTube, because you'll see the lovely visuals we've got going on. Because this is probably the most kind of Irishy version of the podcast we've done yet. In that we're releasing this around St. Patrick's Day. So we're really going to dial up the crack in this episode, if that's okay, Colin.
That's fine. And I'd like to say to everyone that's watching and listening in the Láféile Pádraig.
Very good. Láféile Pádraig.
And St. Patrick's Day. Or you can say Buonach Tí Láféile Pádraig.
Okay.
You can keep that one.
Okay. Gajaber Atatu Tommy Gawai is probably the extent of, or is Smisha Damien? I don't even know how to ask your name.
Colum the Sanum Dum.
Oh, great. Grand.
Jack Lore.
Right, you're showing me up now. Right, so yes, so welcome back to the podcast. And as I said, we're going to be dialing up the crack. And as you can see, those of you who are watching, I've dialed up the costume as well. So got this lovely thing. Very sorry to hear about Claire's, but I managed to get this lovely thing from them. So thank you so much, Claire's, and all the best to everybody. But yes, those again who can't see it, it's kind of like gold balls, shiny green kind of disco balls, and shamrocks. Very much my vibe, actually, whether it's a Paddy's Day influenced episode or not. I could walk about with these all day long, every day.
It's like a St. Patrick's Day meets New Orleans beads type vibe.
I like that. Yes, I think I'll own that. So yes, that's us. Giving you an idea what's going to happen. I thought what I would like to do, Colm, is continue on from where we left off in the last episode. So we were talking a bit about our accents and about having to adjust those. So I thought I'd give you a little anecdote from my time when I moved, 2 different places. The first one about accents was when I moved to Edinburgh. And I was in Edinburgh and everything was going fine. And because I had been living in Manchester for a while and then I'd moved back home, I kind of anglified my accent quite a lot. So kind of mellowed it out. So it wasn't this kind of Newry, like, you know what I mean? Like, that was terrible Newry accent. Anyway, so I thought, oh yeah, fine. And nobody really paid any mind to it when I was working away with them. So we had all arranged to meet up for a drink the first night out after work for after work drinks. So I went home and then just because I was nervous about hanging out with my new work colleagues, just had 1 or 2 wee drinks in the house myself, just kind of give me a bit of Dutch or Irish courage.
What could go wrong?
So I was saying cilantro to myself. And I met up with them and I met them in a beer garden. Actually, it was the Pear Tree? Was it the Pear Tree? Is that a bar in Edinburgh? I think it is. It's in the Old Town. And met up with them and just started having the crack and talking away. And they were all looked at me like aghast as if I had like smacked them or something. I just couldn't understand it. And so then I just thought, right, so I'll take a breath here and then I'll just ask like, what's going on? And they all collectively were like, slow down and stop shouting. I was like, what are you talking about? Well, like, you don't normally talk like this. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, is this like your natural accent? Is this like do you have like a work accent? And I went, well, I don't think I do, but clearly I must do if you're behaving this way to me. So, and it was the first kind of reminder that I was like, Oh, okay. So when people talk about how, like, when you've had a drink or two and you're kind of, your, suppose your natural accent comes out a bit more, you feel more relaxed. It was very much the case because they looked petrified of me.
They had
So
no idea what you were saying. And, you know, I can relate to that, right? Because coming from Cork, we speak very fast, even for Irish people, right? So, like, we have to slow down for other people in the country to understand what we're speaking about. So, take us
uh
out of that scenario. And I still do slow down quite a lot for people. And I know it because when I'm tired, if I haven't had a good night's sleep, then all of those other things that are working in the background to slow me down that I do automatically with, you know, cognitively without thinking about it
yeah,
aren't there. So I speed through stuff. Um, I'm using words they're probably not used to. And I'll just assume they understand what I'm talking about. And I might be using references that they just wouldn't get. So I think in the back of our brains, our brain is already working out how to communicate to someone.
yeah.
And when you're tired or drunk, then all of that just goes away and they just get the, the raw deal.
The unvarnished version.
Huh.
But yes, that does make a lot of sense. So yeah, that was my kind of my first thing. And then the second thing was the kind of opposite, where my Irish accent actually helped. So when I first moved to Manchester, I used to work for Woolies or Woolworths, to those of you who may not be familiar. You might remember that back in the day. Are you familiar, Colin?
Only when I came here. I
Oh,
don't think
oh,
it
okay.
lasted that long in the Republic. I remember my mother taking me there when I was like 5 or 6, and after that it was gone.
No, no. Anyway, it is sadly missed because I used to work there after school and at weekends and so on. And then for a while, I ended up being the entertainment manager, which was fancy words for I looked after the CDs and the discs and the the book selection and everything. Anyway, I loved it. It was brilliant. It was really great crack. So when I first moved to Manchester, I managed to get a transfer from the Newry branch of Woolies over to the Salford branch of Woolies back in the day, and it was great. However, I couldn't live off working part time in Woolies in a new city, and I needed a new job. Well, not a new job. I needed a second job to supplement my income. So I ended up going around looking for work, and ended up going to the kind of like I don't know how you would describe it, but have you ever heard of the bar O'Shea's?
Yeah,
Yes. So O'Shea's is like a chain Irish restaurant, mostly in England.
restaurant could be pushing it.
Say it again.
Restaurant could be pushing it. It's like
Well,
a
yeah,
plastic
yeah.
patty.
Plastic patty. There we go. Yeah, a plastic patty establishment. And I had gone in, and before I had left Newry to go over there, I hadn't worked in a bar before. However, psychologically, I wanted to kind of be, didn't want to be lying to people. So I had went with my dad down to the local before I went away. And I just said, could I ask the barman to just pull a pint behind the bar just to say that I've pulled a pint? So I did. So then went to Didsbury in Manchester. And that's where the Irish bar was. And funnily enough, I was thinking about this before we got on this episode. And the manager was a Scottish guy called Ramsey. And I was just like, isn't it funny the way things work out? But anyway, Ramsey had said to me, oh, have you pulled a pint before? And I went, yes, I have. Um, he says, do you know your way around a bar? I went, oh, well, they're all quite different. So, it'll probably take me a little while to get used to it. And he was like, all right, I'll take a chance on you. So then I went in and started working. I think it was every Friday, Saturday, and then it was Sunday evenings or whatever. And oh my God, I was rubbish. I I could pull a pint, but oh my God, you'd get people who'd be saying like, "Oh, can I have like a double D and T or whatever?" I'd be asking, "What's tea?" Now, thinking of how did I not know what a gin and tonic was is ridiculous because I'm a fan of a gin and tonic. However, yeah, at the time, I just was surprised about how I managed to get through it all. But anyway, on reflection, and in speaking to a couple of my colleagues, um, they, after quite a few drinks, were quite comfortable in telling me that I was the only Irish thing about that bar. Um, so I think it was a bit of positive discrimination that got me the job.
That
So
you were running it like faulty towers.
I probably was as effective, yeah. Okay.
Mm. Okay.
So
Nicely done, yeah.
yeah, so that was I always remember thinking like, oh yeah, that's where I've been rewarded for just talking. And it's nice to think that I'm putting it out there, the vibes in the world. Maybe the podcast is a new version of that where I'll get rewarded for talking. But yeah, it was a nice feeling. But yeah, it didn't last too long because I wasn't very good in the bar. And it didn't last too long there either. So yeah, when people would ask for a Guinness and they were surprised that an Irishman couldn't put a shamrock on the top of a Guinness, I was like, have you ever visited Ireland? Just because I'm from Ireland doesn't mean that I can pour the perfect pint of Guinness with a lovely little shamrock on it. So we used to always just say it was a drunken shamrock because it was just like
Oh,
a
well,
swig.
I, ca- I, like I grew up in a pub, right? So from 6 to like 21, I lived in a pub, or lived and worked in a pub, and I could never do the shamrock. So don't beat yourself up
Hey,
about that. But I could pull a really good pint.
fair play then. But yeah, to that point, you reminded me about people when they would ask for a Guinness in black. I was like, oh my god, this is sacrilegious.
Yeah, I suppose it kind of depends on like what I used to love about the pub was the difference in language. Like there's like an Irish couple. Like there's a British couple is two, an Irish couple is however many people in the group. So like people would ask you in the pub for a couple of packs of Tato, right?
Uh-huh.
Which would be, if there was four people in the group, you gave them 4 bags of Tato, right? But like if someone was not Irish came in and said, "Can I have a couple of bags of Tato?" and you look at the group, there's four of them. You give them four, they're like, "No, I mean two." All right, okay. That's why I said for couple. So there's like these language differences. Um, what I always kind of found was a bit funny.
Yeah, it was weird. Um, but yeah, it's something else about the pub. So those of you that can see, I'm pointing up to a map that I have. So this map actually is from that pub. I'm not telling you where I live, so you can't get it back. But the reason why I took this, I'm not going to take it down because my set is very delicate. But um, the reason I took it is because it says the native whiskey, and it talks about Duncan Alderdice Company Limited, which, if I'm very frank, I have yet to find Duncan Alderdice whiskey anywhere. But um, apparently it was made in Newry, which is where I'm from, and where we're doing this podcast from. So it was just really mad to see a map of Ireland where Newry was the predominant town on it. Something that I'm really not used to at all. So even though now it's technically a city, it's a very, very, very small city. So yeah, so there you go. So part of my set is actually from my first job as an Irishman away from Ireland when I was in the fancy part of Manchester, Didsbury. But I don't think it's even opened anymore at that O'Shea's. But next time I'm down to my friend Tabby, I'll ask her, can we maybe go along? But yeah, I just thought it was great that I managed to get a job just by being Irish. I'm not having any talent to do the job. I just got it for being me.
How long did you stay in the job?
Probably about a year and a half, something like that.
Okay. I think you were fine. I mean, maybe it could have been for comedy value, but I mean, if you were that bad, you would have been gone after a few days.
Nah, maybe so. But I still think it was positive discrimination. I think it was like they were, if there was any tourists in and they were like, what's so Irish about it? And they could point to me and they'd like, talk to me. So, and I actually accepted it. I allowed it to happen, and it got me a wage. However, because it was my second job, I didn't get much from that wage. The tax man got a lot of
Not a lot. You could have been, more on for the tips, cash in hand,
Yeah,
of course,
no,
which you would have declared naturally.
of course, Colm, yes. No, to be fair, I didn't get many tips because it wasn't so good.
It's terrible, terrible pint of Guinness coming up.
So I just thought that was a nice couple of Irish anecdotes to share with you. Have you got anything yourself to share from a kind of your experience of being Irish outside of Ireland?
Well, I always think about, you know, like we kind of connecting with different. I think you connect more as an Irish person outside the country because you're trying to really be with more people like yourself. So
Mhm.
I remember going to an event. It was a St. Patrick's Day event in Glasgow City Chambers. It was hosted by the consulate from Edinburgh. She was over, and I took along one of my friends, saying, "Come on along with me." I was looking for like a, a wing person. And so she came along. We're having a couple of drinks, usual drinks reception. I was talking away to the consulate, um, and she came back from the bar, and I thought, well, okay, well, I'm going to use this opportunity to go to the bar myself,
Mhm.
and I just said, well, just have a chat, nonchalantly. Didn't really introduce them. Like walked away, came back a couple of minutes later, and my friend's face was, as they say in Glasgow, tripping her. She looked like she just chewed a wasp. Um, and I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "Oh my God, I'm absolutely mortified." I said, "Why? What have you done?" She said, "I just asked that lady, who is she and what does she do?" And she turned around and she said, "Well, I'm the consulate and I'm hosting this event tonight, so I just need to go up here and do a
Oops.
speech and I'll be right back." And it just kind of made me think about how we're not as deferent in Ireland. Like I think she would have expected him to be introduced and, oh my, airs and graces, and I was like, just chat amongst yourselves, and I walked off. So I find
Yeah.
sometimes that Irish people aren't, we just love talking, so we kind of forget about the airs and the graces and the formalities, and we let people introduce themselves to each other just because they're in our group and they're talking. I said, so sometimes I find that I'm not as formal as probably people would expect me to be.
Yeah, we're not shy about coming forward, are we? Mhm.
No.
Um,
Um,
and then yeah, the informality of it. I don't know. Maybe that kind of blow our own trumpets. Maybe that's why people find us a bit charming, if you know what I mean, because we're not as I don't know overly thinking about stuff. We're just more natural, I suppose, because we enjoy talking to people.
I think we land stuff differently. The team that I work with know that I can be, if I'm delivering some bad news or some feedback to someone in a public way, it's delivered with sarcasm rather than like a derogation to someone. It's delivered with a bit of wit.
Yeah,
It's not a straight on confrontation. It comes in from the side. There's like, there might be a compliment, but there's a sting in the tail type thing that
yeah.
comes as well.
It actually is a lovely segue, and we didn't actually plan this. It's just from something you said. I think it works well. Um, into asking you about your dinner guest, as in who would be an ideal person to bring along to a big, fabulous, proud dinner party, or proud crack dinner party. And when you mentioned wit, you got me thinking of my first guest. So I would love to bring along Oscar Wilde.
Don't
Yes,
know if that ever could be assaulted at the table verbally, obviously.
Well, this is it. I think I would just love to just like listen to him talk about all of like just so intellectually witty and sarcastic and cutting and oh my gosh, I just think he would be a fantastic. And then also just because of his background and his sexuality and his creativity and his way to charm people and then his place in the arts. And I went to see The Importance of Being Earnest last
Mhm.
year and I saw it in the Belfast Lyric Theatre and it was by a local production. I think it's currently on in the West End in London with Stephen Fry. I think he plays like the elderly woman in it. Um, but I just remember really reveling in the kind of sarcasm and cutting wit that was part of the script, and the play itself. And I just thought it was just it's such a the Irishness to me came off really well because even though, the importance of being earnest, if you watch it, you don't get any Irishness of it. It's an English play.
Hmm.
I just thought that he was so good at, the lines that he'd come out with in the scripting of his plays and that. Because I think the other one we did was wasn't necessarily a witty one, but it was quite a cutting one. Was the Dorian Gray one? What's that one?
Oh,
Um,
no idea.
Anyway, but it again was really like kind of highbrow, but he was so smart and witty, and I just think the stories he could tell and the kind of flamboyance and the kind of cutting put downs, I would love to learn. I would love to have better cut downs with people because let's be honest, you meet some people in life and you're just like you look back and you go, oh, I wish I had have said something really cutting to put them back down because they were an arse or something. You know what I mean?
I think sometimes you just I find I say it sometimes. I say something. I haven't. It's not been preconceived. It just comes out, and it can be cutting. Or I see someone's reaction to it, and I thought, oh, maybe I've gone too far here. Um, but I'll take your Oscar Wilde. I'll raise it like Panti Bliss, right? I think if
Oh,
you're thinking
fantastic!
about Oscar dealing with the scenario he was in and what was going on at the time, I think I'd love to sit down and spend some time with Panti, right? Because she did this speech on the stage about, needing to check yourself when you go out and, when you're standing at the traffic lights, you need to check yourself. And it makes me think about, as I mentioned in the last catch up, about, the perpetual coming out. It's like this is a process we're going through the whole time. And while there's been a lot of progress, there's still so much kind of pushback. And I think if you were to put those two um, in a in a situation in a meeting, one of it could be handbags at dawn, right? It could be quite funny,
Yeah,
but I think the story, the scenarios, the underlying currents haven't probably moved on as much as we probably like to think they've moved on. Although the law has changed, I always think about doing something in work where we were comparing LGBT rights against women's rights.
uh-huh.
And it was really interesting to see that, when women got the vote and how much didn't really change, in that length of time or, working in financial services, when I was young, women couldn't get their own bank account unless a man signed for it. So, like things haven't actually moved on that far. So if you were like contrasting male and female LGBT issues from 100 years ago to now, I think that the scenario would be quite similar. It'd be interesting to put those two people together and see what they would come up with at a meeting.
Yeah, it was interesting actually. You just triggered a thought of mine. So Ian McKellen was actually on one of the late night talk shows in America recently, and he did a speech from Shakespeare, and it was talking about immigration, and it was basically shaming people about the way that they were being so awful and abhorrent to immigrants. And he had said it, and it just sounded so resonant, and that was from 400 years ago.
Hmm.
Oh my God, that's
Well,
nutty.
I'll pay that one. I was reading a story. It was Plato, and he was going on complaining about teenage kids, and it's a true, true today as it was like a couple of thousand years ago. So, I think,
Plato.
yeah, I know. I just thought I took a notion, as they say in Ireland, a notion to read it at some stage, and I still have it in the library. But I thought, oh, really interesting stuff that we think is modern, but actually has been going on for thousands of years.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. Well, what I'd like to do then, just to round off this episode then, because I think it's got quite highbrow and intellectual, which I'm feeling really uncomfortable with. Um, I'm quite out of my depth. um, suppose it did start with Oscar Wilde. It was only going to go one way, wasn't it? So um, ended up with Plato, freaking hell, and Shakespeare. Anyway, uh, I'm conscious of, the time of the year and when we're recording this and about the whole pride and our Irishness. Um, and I noticed there's a couple of things coming out. Others, there's culturally some things that are out, but some new things coming out. So, of course, you mentioned Derry Girls, I think maybe in the previous episode, and
Mhm.
Father Ted. But there's a new sitcom out from the writer of Derry Girls, and I think it's How to Get to Heaven from Belfast. I think that's what you call it. Have you seen a trailer for it yet?
No, not yet.
And it basically just looks like the girl. It's not the same girls, but it's uh, Irish girls from the North Ireland, and they're all having the crack, but it's all madcap crack, and it's kind of like as if you could imagine the Derry Girls grew up and they still haven't grown up, and they're just having mad crack. And even Ardlo Hanlon's actually in it from Father Ted. Oh, there's a nice little link, and it just looks like so much fun. But it's that's bringing it back to like Irish pride, seeing things like that on like a global platform, and reminding people of like just I don't know, just how great we are as Irish people. That stuff like that really makes me proud to be Irish because it just reminds people and it shows people that we're not, I don't even mean in terms of just like being funny, just as in like we're a real warm people, as cliched as that sounds, generous and welcoming. And, we want to have the crack. And I don't keep saying crack because it's the Proud Crack podcast, but that's part of the reason why I call the podcast Proud Crack, because we just enjoy having the crack and talking to people and entertaining people and listening to people and whatever. So, I just saw that advertised recently, and I'm really excited to see that because I want other people to kind of get that feeling again, like they did when they watched Derry Girls. And I remember when I was watching Derry Girls, I was in Edinburgh, and again, kind of bringing it back to the theme of this mini series of the podcast, it did make me feel even more proud to be Irish because it was just like a little taste of home. Um, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a celebration, right? So it's you can relate to it, right? So particularly for me anyway, with Derry Girls, right? And it's I can't relate to the city, right? But I can relate to the time period, and I can put myself in it, but from a totally different perspective. Um, and I think when I was growing up anyway, we didn't really have a lot of Irish things, right? Like, as in, we didn't have a lot of role models that you could look to.
Hmm.
Certainly didn't have LGBT role models, right?
Hmm.
Um, whereas, when you look back at, say, Derry Girls, they were in there. So I think it's something that we're more confident as people to get on, to explain, to talk about our things. People's, accents are like, when people are being interviewed, they haven't, lost their accent. You can still hear the accent. Obviously, they slow down so people understand what they're saying because we're not going 400 miles an hour, right? But then
Yeah.
you're, you, people, there's a much more self-confidence about things, and that there's a proudness. Whereas, 30, 40 years ago, I think people were still trying to understand exactly what that was. And, there's been a huge amount of change in Ireland. I think when I left Ireland, it was still very insular. It was just starting to, I mean, up until the 90s, it was illegal to be gay. Uh, so I was born illegal in Ireland, effectively. And when you look back, I mean, there's been, the marriage referendum, et cetera, et cetera. These are really strong, confident things that set Ireland apart as it
Hmm.
from other countries, and I thought that was great. And when I look back, there's a lot to be proud of.
100%. And to kind of bring it full circle to me introducing you in the start of the last episode, we met through our kind of activism of support when it comes to like LGBTQ awareness and rights and that. And then we ended up becoming mates. But one of the things I think we both agree on that we love doing is just going to Pride, because just being yourself and your Irish identity isn't part of it. You're just yourself and you're there to support other people who want to just be themselves. And I think that's why one of the things I love about Pride is that I'm never aware of my identity, whether it be my Irishness or my sexuality or my gender, or I'm just really comfortable in that space. And it's another reason why I really encourage people to be better allies, just because if people are just comfortable around you and just like easy, can be themselves, like your t-shirt, if you can give us a wee shimmy, let's see. EU. um, well, it's just a better world, isn't it? So, and I just think like, whilst we've got people like ourselves who are proud to be Irish and proud of who we are out there being ourselves, then it just hopefully it can kind of rub off on other people and they can do more as well. So to round off the episode, then, can you tell me why you're proud to be Irish? We didn't script this, so this is me putting you on the spot. So,
So,
Colin? Why are you proud to be Irish?
so I think actually, I would say I would go back to I'm actually proud of myself first, right? And I think that's the grounding part of it. And then I'm really proud of everything. I love history. I love geography, as I've said already, right? So I love exploring how Ireland came into being and the things that people went through the centuries, right? So all of the stuff around ring forts, Nava, and all of this kind of thing, the High Kings, the stories that are there, the music. Um, so I think when I when I hear something that reminds me of Ireland, like so if I hear like some Irish music, even if I'm only here for a brief second, I'm tapping my toes and I'm thinking about it for a while, right? So it's just it's this feeling, I think, and if I can be happy to be Irish and talk about it and celebrate it, then yes, I have no idea. Like it's just this feeling of being. It's really nice to be Irish. It's really good to have some sort of identity that you can use at some point, but it's not all of me. It's like sitting here with the trans awareness things. It's like a beacon to someone else about something else,
Mhm.
and like it's just kind of woven into me.
It's wonderful. It was so funny listening to you talking about the hearing the Irish music and tapping away. I remember I was in, I think it was Chicago. I can't remember if it was Chicago or New York, but a long time ago. And I seem to kind of appreciate classic Irish music. I know we call it fiddly diddly, which is very derogatory, but
Call
you
it diddle o douse,
call it what?
diddle o douse, like diddle o douse dee.
So yeah, it's that. And I just remember though, rather than it being like, oh, there's the silly old Irish music, it was pride. I was like, oh my god, I feel so proud to be hearing like my music from like my home country. And I just was like, it's wonderful to kind of see like Irishness being embraced wherever you are in the world. So I know in America it's kind of like a given that that's what with the history of Ireland and America and immigration and so on. But it didn't stop me from just feeling great pride in just my Irishness and just kind of being wanting. In some ways, it made me want to go back home
Mhm.
because it just reminded me of home. And I think that's something that we're really good at connecting with people, whether it be through like music or through storytelling, or through just having the crack with people wherever we are in the world. So whether it be in America, Scotland, or back here in Ireland, North or South, um, or even in England. So thank you very much for sharing that because you reminded me a lot about what I enjoy about being Irish and why I'm proud to be Irish. And I must admit, being back in Ireland after being away for so long, I'm probably embracing my Irishness even more so than I have done in the past because I've got this platform to share it with people and to let people know that, look, even if you're not Irish, you can still have the crack. You can still be a good ally to people. You can still just be a good person. And, don't judge people. Just let people be who they are. And the crack flows and you have great time. And, just life's just a bit easier, isn't it? If everybody's just accepting everybody else and just has the crack and focuses less on the negatives and just focuses on having the crack. Oh, so thanks again, Colin, for coming on the podcast. I've really enjoyed the crack. I sincerely mean it, and I hope you have too. And before our round up, is there any final thoughts that you have that you'd like to share with us then, in regards to your Irishness?
Well, I think, as we were talking, what I thought about was going to Dingle for a New Year's. And we said we'd go for a bit of a pub crawl, right? And we walked into one pub and there was a full-blown ceilidh happening on in the pub, right? And everyone was just so friendly. And I had a bit of Dutch courage on board after a couple of pubs. And I just went in, joined in, and started having this great dance-off with you know, like, with them. And it was just so much fun, right? And that, like, I, it, I think when you're away from Ireland and you come back, you really recognize how great it is to be Irish, to have all of these different things. You know, there's so much sport, there's so much crack, there's chat, there's music, the whole lot. And we forget about it because we don't appreciate it, I don't think, when we're at home living in Ireland. And it's once you go out and experience other things, there's the novelty of something new for a while, but actually after a while you think, actually there's something missing, and that's the stuff that I think you feel when you get home.
And what a beautiful way to end the episode. Thank you so much, Colin. That's really nice of you. So thank you very much again for joining us on the podcast. And yeah, it's been great crack. And if those of you that have been listening or viewing are interested in hearing more crack, check out the podcast on Spotify or YouTube. You can watch us or listen to us. Even if you can just give us a like or a share, would be very much appreciated, because the more of that happens, the more of these types of podcasts I can do, and the more proud crack I can share with you. So thanks again, Colum. All the best, and sure I'll catch up the crack with you again. So, thanks again, everybody, and remember,
stay proud.